So welcome everyone. It's a pleasure to have our first virtual meeting. I think the last time we met, we did not expect that the next time would be in this format, but I'm pleased to see you all, even if it's virtually.
Just hang on. Okay, I switched my interpretation. So welcome to the meeting number 7 of the House of Commons Studying Committee on Agriculture and Agri-Food. Pursuant to the orders of reference of April 11th and April 29th, 2020, the committee is meeting for the sole purpose of receiving evidence concerning matters related to the government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The order of reference of April 11th also stipulates that the only motions requesting or scheduling specific witnesses can be considered by the committee, and that such motion shall be decided by way of a recorded vote. As you know, today's meeting is taking place by video conference, and the proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website. So that you are aware, the webcast will always show the person speaking rather than the entirety of the committee. So in order to facilitate the work of our interpreters and ensure an orderly meeting, I would like to outline a few rules to follow. First, interpretation in this video will work very much like a regular committee meeting. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either floor, English, or French. When you intervene, please make sure that your language channel is set to the language you intend to speak, not the floor. This ensures best sound quality possible for our interpreters, and this is very important. Also, before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. When you are ready to speak, you can either click on the microphone icon to activate your mic, or you can hold down the space bar on your laptop or computer while you are speaking. When you release the bar, your mic will mute itself, just like a walkie-talkie, or for your truckers, what do you call it, CB. Je tiens aussi à vous rappeler que tous les membres.
I would also like to remind you that all the members and witnesses should ask the questions through the chair. Members who need to ask to speak, when it's not their turn to ask questions, should turn on their microphones and say it's a call, that it's a point of order. So if somebody has to intervene, they must use the raise your hand function and signal to the chair that they'd like to intervene. To do so, please click on participant at the bottom of the screen. And when the list appears, you will see right next to your name that you can click on the icon, raise your hand. Speak slowly and clearly, and make sure that your microphone is turned off when you stop speaking. As you know, we strongly urge you to use headsets. If your headsets have a microphone, make sure that it doesn't hit against your chest or your shirt during your speech. In the case of technical difficulty, if you have difficulty hearing the interpretation or you've been accidentally disconnected, please immediately inform the chair or the clerk, and the technical team will try to resolve the issue. Please note that we might have to suspend just to make sure that everybody participates fully. Every now and then, could all participants click on the right-hand top side of their screen to make sure that they have a full view. This allows you to be able to see all the participants in a grid, and all participants in the video conference can see each other. I don't know if everybody has been able to do that. We should be able to have everybody, all the different squares should have a face on the screen. I think it's better just in terms of finding out who is present.
Sorry? Was there something? Okay, I'll keep going. Finally, just as we usually would do in a regular meeting, we will suspend in between panels or sections of the agenda. There's a great deal of resource involved in the holding of virtual meetings, and because of that, start and end of meeting times are currently set by the whip of all recognized party in consultation with the House of Commons administration. I will therefore ensure that the committee meets and finishes on time, especially when there are other committee meetings following our own meeting time. With that, we are ready to begin, and I would like now to welcome our witnesses for this meeting. And we will start, so today at today's meeting, we have from Department of Agriculture and Agri-Food, Mr. Chris Forbes, Deputy Minister. Welcome to our committee, Mr. Forbes.
Thanks
And
for having us.
also from Department of Agriculture, we have Frederick Seppi, Assistant Deputy Minister, Market Industry Service Branch. Welcome, Mr. Seppi. And also from the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, we have Colleen Barnes, Vice President, Policy and Program. So just a few other, so remind members that the complete sitting will be in public. There's no mechanism to sit in camera yet in virtual meetings. So even though we might cover some business at the end, everything will be in public. So let's go to our witnesses, and we'll start with I believe Mr. Forbes for 10 minutes.
Okay, I will start for 10 minutes, and thank you very much. I will, Mr. President, Mr. Chair, probably start in French, then switch to English, and then return to French. Donc, j'aimerais vous remercier.
I would like to thank you all. I'm pleased, it's good to see you virtually. I was with you during your last meeting, March 12th, with the Minister. We are here today to speak about the government's response, the Government of Canada's response to the COVID-19 pandemic and its impacts on our agri-food system. The pandemic has delivered a significant shock to the sector and the food supply chain from the farm to the grocery store. While our food supply chain continues to function and is adapting, the impacts are profound. There are some positive aspects. The transportation system is still working very well in terms of delivering our agricultural produce, and the fact that the frontiers have stayed open, that has only greatly helped us in terms of imports and exports. But the almost entirely shut down hotel sector has had a great impact on the full supply chain. Several businesses have product surpluses that are not easy to transport to the consumers. COVID-19 is still causing labor shortages throughout the agri-food sector for producers and their processors and organizations that give food to the most vulnerable. The meat processing parts have had great difficulties. Many have even had to temporarily shut down their operations.
So I think that's how it should work. Let's give it a try again, Mr. Forbes.
Okay.
Okay. As I said, the meat processing plants was a major example over the past weeks. Can you hear them, Mr. Ellis?
I'm not hearing the translation. I'm only hearing the original. It's mumbled together.
And
okay, I'm not the only crazy one then.
Yeah, same here as well.
Let's just ask.
The translation volume needs to be higher than the original speaker.
Okay, let's wait. We
L'interprète n'entend pas ce qui s'est expliqué là en ce moment. The interpreter can't hear what is being explained right now.
So, Mr. Forbes, you understood. So, whenever you speak French, you have to click on the French. Yeah, and in English, you have to click on the English.
Okay. Alors, est-ce que ça fonctionne?
Can you hear me now clearly without mumbling, without overlapping? As I said, the meat processing plants actually, I was coming to the end of my comments in French. Then I'll switch back to English. Yes. So, these delays are causing major issues in the cattle and the hog sector. It's very costly for producers as they have to keep their animals longer on farms while prices are changing rapidly. So let's switch to English.
One important step that we have taken so far is providing federal guidance to recognize the food supply chain as an essential service to reinforce the vital work from production and processing through to distribution and sales of food, that it must continue across the country. And we have also lifted travel restrictions on incoming temporary foreign workers and offered $50 million in funding to help employers cover the cost of quarantine for those workers. Over 11,200 temporary foreign workers have arrived since the travel ban was lifted, compared to about 13,000 at this time last year. At the same time, efforts are underway to reach out to all the Canadians who have lost their jobs due to COVID-19 to consider the many opportunities to work in the agriculture and agri-food industry. My department has launched a jobs portal. We have a social media campaign urging Canadians to consider job opportunities in the food industry. And we are complementing the efforts by provincial governments to match unemployed residents with food sector jobs. To support our workers on the front lines, the government has also worked with the provinces and territories to offer a top-up to the wages of low-income essential workers. On the side of financial tools and support, to help farmers and food businesses navigate the stresses resulting from COVID-19, there have been a range of financial measures put in place. Perhaps first and foremost was the $5 billion in new lending capacity to Farm Credit Canada to help farmers and businesses keep their businesses strong during the pandemic and to help with cash flow. And to date, over $3 billion worth of loans have been deferred with FCC. The government also extended the payment deadline for the advanced payment program for those that had a repayment deadline before the end of April. And we've extended the Agri-Stability Program enrollment deadline to July 3rd to encourage more farmers, producers, and ranchers to manage the impact of current market disruptions, increased expenses, and production challenges. There are broader measures available to businesses, such as access to interest-free loans of up to $40,000, with $10,000 of that amount forgivable, and items like deferral of income tax payments, as well as GST, HST, and customs duties. Specifically to the agriculture and food sector as well, we have announced, or the government has announced, $20 million to help the Canadian Food Inspection Agency hire, train, and equip additional staff, which has meant more capacity to accommodate overtime and extra shifts. And this funding is also supporting the sharing of inspection resources between provincially and federally inspected processing facilities, which is the case currently in Alberta. Another area of significant activity has been in terms of food banks and community supports. Across the country, food banks and community food organizations have been forced to change the way they work. They've had to find new volunteers, certainly minimizing interpersonal contact, offering more home deliveries, and all this while serving a growing number of Canadians. As part of the response, the government has directed $100 million to support food banks and other organizations on the front lines. The funds that have been distributed can be used to purchase, support, and distribute food, hire temporary help to fill volunteer shortages, and implement biosecurity measures, such as purchase of personal protective equipment. We have, as we've gone through this process, also tried to keep in very, very close contact with industry representatives to make sure we understand developments as they happen. We've engaged with industry representatives, daily calls 5 times a week, led by my colleague, Mr. Sepe, which have included about 500 participants, usually from the sector. And so this has allowed us, as I've said, to be aware of developments in real time, but also to communicate a range of government activities directly to the sector. We're also working with the provinces and territories, obviously, quite closely, meeting with our colleagues there to make sure we're aligning programming and understanding their pressures. And we've had specific working groups with the meat and poultry industries to address and understand some of their challenges. I'll finish with just some comments or a summary of today's announcements around the agriculture and food sector. I think, Mr. Chair and members, you're all aware that the Prime Minister announced this morning a number of measures that totaled in financial support about $250 million for producers and processors. First of all, probably most notably, some additional support for programs under the Business Risk Management Suite, and some for businesses as well. On the programming side, the BRM side, the government has launched an initiative up to $125 million nationally under the Agri-Recovery Program, which is joint with the provinces, with the first steps being programs to focused on cattle and pork producers to help them with costs such as feeding animals longer on site. And I guess in the case of hogs, if it comes to that unfortunate case of having to do humane depopulation. In the Agri-Recovery Program, we are committing to have the program cover 90% of eligible expenses, which is up from the normal 70%. And the federal government has said that we will put, it's normally a 60-40 cost share with the provinces, and we will put our 60% up. And if the provinces have funds to bring it up to add their 40 cents, they can, but if not, we would still proceed. We're also working with the provinces and territories to look at the agri-insurance program to see if we can get the absence or the shortage of workers to become an eligible risk under the agri-insurance program, which would be helpful for those worried about crops not being harvested in the fall due to a shortage of workers. These are on top of the existing risk management programs, obviously, which pay out about $1.6 billion annually to producers. We've also today there was announcements around a program for food processors, a total of $77.5 million for food processors to help them adapt to new circumstances related to managing COVID-19, and also to ensure continued food production and potentially increased food production in Canada. And two final points. One would be 2 points related to surplus food, which I mentioned at the beginning of my remarks. A new program of $50 million to help purchase some of the surplus food that exists in Canada, that to help direct that to those most vulnerable Canadians who need it. And also a proposal to work with Parliament to increase the borrowing limit of the Canadian Dairy Commission, which would allow them to better manage what current milk supply imbalances by storing additional amounts of butter and cheese for dairy producers. So, Mr. Chair, that's my summary of what's happened so far in terms of government response, and I am certainly, along with my colleagues, happy to take any questions from the members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Minister. And now we'll turn it over to Ms. Colleen Barnes from CFIA. Go ahead, Ms. Barnes, up to 10 minutes if you can.
Thank you very much, and I'll start in English and finish in French. So, Mr. Chair, thank you very much for this opportunity to participate in this virtual meeting of the Standing Committee. I appreciate the chance to share my perspectives as part of the committee's study of the government's response to COVID-19. During this difficult time, CFIA is taking action to preserve the integrity of Canada's food safety system while safeguarding its animal and plant resource base. And in doing so, CFIA is committed to protecting the health and safety of its employees while maintaining these critical inspection services. Every day, we are working to understand the concerns of industry and consumers with respect to COVID-19 and the unprecedented impact around the globe on businesses, economies, and people. To address these extraordinary challenges that Canadian consumers and industry are facing, CFIA is prioritizing critically important activities and services during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic situation by introducing a temporary suspension of low-risk activities that do not immediately impact the safety of food or the protection of our agriculture resources. The agency will maintain appropriate oversight of domestic and imported food products to meet the objective, while also supporting trade and the supply chain, including through the certification of exports. During this COVID-19 pandemic, we are prioritizing the following activities: so food safety investigations and recalls, animal disease investigations if warranted, regulated inspection services, for example, what we do in meat slaughter establishments, export certification, import services, emergency management if required, and laboratory diagnostics that support those activities. CFIA will continue to examine its requirements to determine where further flexibility can be helpful. For example, the agency is temporarily suspending certain non-food safety labeling requirements for food service products so that they can be quickly repurposed for retail to consumers. This temporary measure will aim to ease potential food shortages in the retail sector and prevent food waste and support Canada's economy without compromising food safety. Also, in the event of meat shortages, we are working with the provinces and territories to enable the interprovincial trade of meat produced in provincially regulated establishments. Notwithstanding this flexibility, industry remains responsible for the safety and the quality of the food that it produces, imports, and exports. And despite the current pandemic situation, the CFIA will continue to exercise its enforcement discretion as appropriate. This evolving situation highlights the importance of continued collaboration and communication between CFIA, industry, and its other stakeholders and partners. To assist in these efforts, as DM Forbes has mentioned, the CFIA was very pleased to hear the announcement of $20 million for the agency to help it to continue its important work. With this additional funding, the CFIA will be reassigning staff to areas of high priority and providing them with necessary training and tools, increasing the number of inspectors by hiring new staff or temporarily bringing back those CFIA employees who have recently retired, hiring more veterinarians to provide inspection in industries like meat slaughter, funding more overtime hours to help support longer production hours of industry, equipping inspectors with digital tools and tablets and access to CFIA's remote service delivery network, developing agreements, as DM Forbes mentioned, with the provinces to train and equip some provincial inspectors so they can provide assistance to the CFIA on a temporary basis if as needed, and continuing our work with international trading partners to support exports and Canada's jobs and economy. These efforts will help uphold the Government of Canada's commitment to safe food for Canadians and support the sector at the same time. I'll switch to French to conclude. We are working closely with industry to keep establishments operating. CFIA has developed guidance for establishments. All facilities should follow appropriate public health protocols and seek guidance from local. Oh, Jim, excuse. Jim, excuse.
All right. We are working closely with industry to keep establishments operating. CFIA has developed guidelines for establishments. All facilities should follow appropriate public health protocols and seek guidance from local public health authorities. The CFIA takes this evolving situation seriously and has advised all employees that they have a duty to follow the guidelines of health authorities to protect public health. We have also asked employees to follow the health and safety protocols put in place by the establishments in which they work. CFI is working closely with establishments to determine what capacity is required to ensure food safety and prevent pressures on the meat supply. To date, we continue to maintain the appropriate number of inspectors in meat establishments and have a plan in place to address potential inspector absenteeism, and an escalation process is in place with industry should issues arise. In conclusion, I would like to reiterate the significant role that CFI inspectors have in keeping Canada's food supply safe. We will continue to work diligently to ensure the safety of the food made available to Canadians. Mr. Chair, I'm happy to address any questions posed by members of the committee.
And with that, we shall start our question round. Just want to say hi to Mr. Barlow that joined us. Hope you're doing well, Mr. Barlow. Good to see you. And just hang on so I can... Alors, les questions...
So the question period will go just as if we were face-to-face, 6 minutes for the first round. And to start, we have Mr. Liu. Welcome, Mr. Liu. It's good to see you. You have 6 minutes to ask questions. I should say that you cannot really interrupt because we'll be jumping from one frame to the other, so you would have to wait. I would ask the people answering the question to take up about the same time as for the question. So you cannot go beyond roughly the time, just to have balance. Mr. Liu, 6 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased to see all of you here through this video conference. My first question then is for Deputy Minister Forbes. We know several factories, establishments were forced to close their doors given the high numbers of COVID cases. Since then, some have reopened. A few days, even a few weeks after, we have a significant establishment in Alberta. It's a Cargill establishment that reopened its doors May 4th. That was yesterday. With reduced functionality, with fewer personnel. So what measures of the federal government intending to take? You've announced a program today, yes, but for buying back the bail, somebody handling more than 40% of the Canadian cattle production, and that closes and that reopens half-time with reduced personnel. What measures does the department plan to come up with to support producers? Because cattle producers will probably have to stay longer, a lot longer on the farm. So what are some of these solutions, Mr. Minister?
Sir.
I think I put it on French. Should I put it in French to answer then? Yes. Okay. Yes, what we announced today, it's a program that is geared towards taking up this challenge. In English, it's called, well, that's the money set aside up to $50 million to work with the provinces. It's meant to cover some of the additional costs incurred by producers as far as keeping cattle over longer periods on the farm and offering them the necessary support. This was something that was requested by the stakeholders in terms of the types of programs we should come up with, and this was about 15, 20 years ago. Mr. Deputy Minister, there is a very important factor as far as processing in the program. That was part of the program announced today to support the processing establishments. Now, let's look at the pork industry in Quebec. Email is a major processor in Quebec. Yes, there are some aspects of the program to support industries, but as far as maintaining like the sanitary aspects, the health aspects, supporting businesses that have to acquire additional equipment, be it masks, helmets, additional protective clothing, and so on. But we don't really have a measure, specific measure to support processors, and even less so with producers. You know, Mr. Deputy Minister, in Quebec, it's over 100,000 head of pigs that are being held back. What are the solutions? The measures announced today cannot really cover these costs entirely. On the contrary, well, with the program for processors, it's to assist them to acquire new equipment and so on, so that they can keep operating in the new environment of COVID-19. They have to be able to protect their employees while carrying out their processing activities. It's about $77 or $78 million that were earmarked for that, and there were two announcements under the Agri-Recovery Program, one for cattle producers and the other for pig farmers, and also to assist them with additional costs because they are forced to keep animals on the farm much longer because they cannot process them as quickly as they would like. Thank you. Well, I understand, Mr. Deputy Minister, but right now we are thinking of destroying some of these animals because over the past few weeks there has been much accumulation. The program doesn't really support those costs to the producers, helping them to take up some of these costs in terms of destroying the animals. Could they have some compensation? Those who have prepared these animals, raised them, prepared them for slaughter, and now they have to be destroyed. So we don't have any information on that in the program announced today. Maybe the agri-relaunch program, maybe I didn't explain it well enough. These are exceptional costs, specifically for those types of concerns. This is where we are working with the provinces to clearly define the admissible costs. But the goal is to make sure that for additional costs, if we have to keep the animals longer, people are doing everything to avoid destroying the animals. We're trying to take that into account in the program. Thank you, Mr. Forbes. Thank you, Mr. Lehoux. Now it's Mr. Francis Drouin for 6 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to say hello to all my colleagues who are here and thank the Agriculture Canada team and the CFI team for joining us today. A few questions, and it will be along the same lines as Mr. Lehoux. He asked some excellent questions in relation to the Agri-Recovery Program. If I heard you well, Mr. Ford, you said you are currently negotiating with the provinces to know under what conditions, what do you take into account in the program? Did I hear you well? Yes, that's it. Yes, the provinces have to launch the process, and we will work with them to make sure that we're province-level program. Our goal is to have such a program on a national scale. So with the provinces, we will be determining the eligible cost. So it will be 90% of the cost, of the eligible cost, 60% of the amount will come from the federal government and 40% provincially. Now, if you have cattle or pork producers that come to us and say, well, this agri-recovery program is great. We used it in the past, but it didn't work that well as was intended. If I understand, you're saying the aim of the agri-recovery program is to provide some flexibility within that program. So maybe it doesn't really work right now as well as in the past. It's an evolving situation. It's a new, it's an unusual situation. So you are saying that you would have a lot more flexibility in the program. Well, what we've already done with the provinces is normally we have to work with the provinces to make sure that we can face these extraordinary events. We've already done this as far as the COVID-19 pandemic. We have already completed the first steps in launching the program. This is an issue that we hear often, it takes too much time. The process is time-consuming, too bureaucratic. We're just trying to pick things up and move everything forward faster. Thank you. As far as the processes, I've had several discussions with a local cheese producer, Saint Albert, and I believe it's pretty much the same situation across Canada. They took a COVID-19 bonus. They have to redo their entire processing system. And one of the consequences with physical distancing is instead of being able to produce a lot more each day, they cannot produce as much as they would want. We've had several discussions with processors across the country. Is this the same? Is this picture quite representative of what we see across Canada? Those who take this physical distancing measures, cases like Cargill, Emil, their production cannot be as high as it was before. Yes, it's possible. We are hearing a lot of businesses saying that these could be major challenges in terms of organizing themselves to be as efficient as possible in the current situation. Yes, these distancing measures pose a challenge in terms of their normal processes. That will definitely be a challenge for many. That's why we have these funds announced today. Now, I imagine you have to work on some of the implementation modalities of the program. When can the communities expect this program to be implemented? As I said during my opening remarks, thanks to my colleague, Mr. Sepe, we're working every day with stakeholders. We will begin quick discussions with representatives from the processing industry to make sure that we analyze everything. We have a good idea of their needs, but we would like to concretely take their needs into account. And we'll try to launch this program as quickly as possible. We do understand that it's an urgent situation for these establishments. And another announcement that was made today in the Saint Albert cheese production plant, the members, these are dairy producers. There's a big dairy industry in my area. We saw in the media, be it in Canada and the United States, it's not their fault. You cannot put a plug on a cow. They have to be milked every day, unfortunately. So they buy butter and cheese. You mentioned that today in your comments. So why this credit increase in your announcement? Well, the credit amount for the Canadian Dairy Commission, this allows them in order to solve the issue of surplus production of milk, being able to process it in butter and cheese. These amounts are meant to allow the Commission to purchase parts of this butter and cheese from processors and be able to keep them over some time. So the increase in their credit margins will allow them to have more money available for the operation. Thank you, Mr. Ford. Thank you, Mr. Drouin. Now, Mr. Perron, welcome, Mr. Perron. You have 6 minutes for your questions. Morning, everyone. Afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased to see all the members of the Standing Committee on Agriculture and Agri-Food. Mr. Forbes, this is a broad-based question. If you look at the amounts announced today, I was quite pleased to see announcements related to agriculture. We are May 5th. We've had the first announcements in terms of direct support. But the amounts are quite disappointing. I'm talking about 252 million totally. If you compare with the United States, they have 17 billion offered in support. All things being reasonable, it's 12 times less. Do you really think these amounts are sufficient to take up the challenges? We have tried to respond to the urgent needs. The government has tried to react today. As far as whether it's sufficient or not, it's not really up to me to decide that. We're trying to respond to the urgent needs of the cattle and the pig industry, the other sectors, potatoes and others. So we are trying to respond to these pressing needs. May I just add that we have the risk management programs that are already being implemented at a provincial level. Well, and that, Mr. Forbes, the programs that are already in place, that's part of the responses, but these don't work for most people. The agri-insurance program, when you have a program that only intervenes in terms of major catastrophe, there were deductions. We had started to boost that program. We know you've been working on that since last summer. Can we quickly come up with something? This COVID crisis, doesn't it present an opportunity to raise the insurance levels to go from 70 to 95% as the agricultural groups wanted? This could give some more confidence to farmers as they plant their farms right now. Well, that's a subject of discussion between the provincial ministers and Minister Bibo. This is an ongoing priority. I know that the ministers are interested in looking at the risk management program to see what we can do in terms of improvement. What can we do in the future? That discussion has to take place at the ministers' table. I must stress that the need is urgent. These needs are for right now. Another thing I would like to raise with you, the ratification of the US-Canada agreement will be coming to force 1st July. We've heard from other committees, dairy producers, processors, they are very disappointed. They had heard that it would not come into effect before 1st July. It's not the first time in negotiations, in recent international negotiations, these issues were raised. And the dairy processors mentioned the issue of import quotas in order to respect the percentages of the amounts that will be coming in here in the framework of these announcements. And they explained the importance of attributing a great part to processors rather than to distributors. Is there any progress on that? Can you give us some signals. We know it will be harder over the next few weeks. We expect that you're working on that in the department. We're working closely with our colleagues in international trade. I can ask my colleague, Mr. Sepe, to say a few words on that. Yes, thank you. Can you hear me? Yes. The issue of tariff quotas during the negotiations, since we signed the agreement 1st November 2018, we've been in close discussions with the Global Affairs International Trade to make sure that this quota allocations corresponded to needs. We have to follow the rules of international trade. Unfortunately, the gentleman's sound quality is very poor. The interpreter is going to do his best to summarize. So there is a major issue in global affairs to look at the tariff quotas globally. Because of the current crisis, things have been suspended. We have taken into account the interest of the processors. We have to make sure that these things are done quickly. You have to take into account the needs of an area that has suffered a lot in the past years from these different treaties. They have suffered significant losses. I think it's fundamental. Now, quickly in ending, the Canadian Dairy Commission, they're talking of increasing the credit capacity. We are pleased to hear that. It's something we proposed in the block. Do you have an idea of the amounts for the credit? That's all the time we have. Thank you. Maybe he can provide you an answers later. Thank you. Now, Mr. McGregor.
Great. Thank you very much, Chair. And I'd like to also repeat the comments as before. Good to see everyone's face again. Mr. Forbes, I think I'll start with you. Just it's similar to what was asked you about the amount that was asked for. The $252 million is just under 10% of what the Canadian Federation of Agriculture thought would be needed. And I understand that it's not really up to you as to whether the amounts are sufficient or not, but perhaps you could inform the committee, how long do you anticipate the $252 million will last for? Like what's the time frame that this amount of money will be adequate for?
So if I were to break it up, I think in the various programs, I mean, the purpose of the set aside program for the cattle sector is certainly a duration of a number of months to help manage the feed costs, and this was quite linked to a request that the cattlemen themselves made. Similarly, hopefully the pork producer amounts will also, for the agri-recovery program, to help them with additional costs, will cover those costs over the period of the coming months and some of the ones that have already been taken place. The processor fund, our goal is to spend all of the money in the coming months as quickly as we can to make sure that money gets in the hands of processors. And then the $50 million for surplus food. Don't have a specific time limit on that, but we'd like to get the money out the door, at the earliest possible chance to get the food out of storage and out of processors' hands, out of farmers' hands, and into the food banks or other places where vulnerable Canadians will have access to it.
Thank you. You mentioned, and the minister gave me a call today before the announcement was made about the change that you're hoping to negotiate with the provinces over agri insurance, including the absence of workers, temporary workers as a risk. As things stands now and looking ahead, the projections for the next few months, is the department aware of just how many workers we might be short by for the upcoming agricultural season?
Well, I mean, the one item that we have a really good handle on right now, I would say, is the temporary foreign worker arrivals. And I think, to be quite honest with you, I feel like we're doing reasonably well given the circumstances. We're over 11,000, close to 12,000 workers thus far if we take into account arrivals so far this week, which is 85 or 90% of where we would have been at last year at this time, which I think, given all the challenges, is significant. Not to downplay the fact that obviously for farmers, the fact that there's 2 weeks of quarantine, means that they are delayed certainly in some of their planting. But overall, I would say we're doing I think pretty well in terms of the arrival of temporary foreign workers, which has taken a great deal of collaboration inside the federal government and with provincial colleagues and producer groups as well. As for the rest of the agricultural workforce, that's a bit harder to tell right now. Obviously, we have still a hiring season on, and reports from provinces of their job matching efforts, I think, are just starting to come in.
Great. I might just change over to Ms. Barnes, because in your opening statement, Ms. Barnes, you were talking about the CFIA and some of the changes that were going on. In today's news, the head of the Agriculture Union called for a closure of a third plant in Alberta, a third processing plant. And I understand the enormous pressure that's on our meat processing plants, given the situation they're in, but there are some grave concerns over worker safety. And while I appreciate that does come under provincial jurisdiction, the CFIA union has made those comments. They are concerned about the state in those meat processing plants. Could you just inform the committee, if the situation gets noticeably worse, what role is the CFIA going to play in those plants if you can see much more of an outbreak, keeping worker safety in mind?
So thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. We've been working really closely with the sector. So, and it's a very local conversation that happens among the local public authority representatives, CFIA, and the plant establishments. Sometimes the occupational health and safety people from the provinces are participating as well. So as a team, they're looking at the risk assessment in the plants. They're working through mitigation scenarios to make sure that the risks are appropriate. And at the end of the day, for us, it's following that local guidance and taking the steps that are recommended by the provincial authorities that'll make sure that we can continue the operations of the plants. And while we've seen a few shut for a couple of weeks, we've been able to manage to get them reopened and processing continuing. We don't have any authority to shut a plant down for that reason. It's really a local decision working with local public health.
Great. And then, Mr. Forbes, I've got just a few seconds left, just about the purchasing of surplus food and distributing it to food insecure communities. Can you add a little bit more into what you've already said or the mechanics of how that's going to work?
Well, to be honest with you, I mean, this is a bit of a new area for us. So I think one of our first steps, we will use existing relationships. We have developed pretty good relationships with a network of national food banks who themselves have regional food bank networks, and we're going to sort of sit down with them in the coming days to discuss the nature of the program and how we might quickly get at some of the key surplus products that.
Thank you, Mr. Forbes.
And that people need.
Thank you. Sorry for cutting you off there. But, okay, now we'll start our second round. So, Mr. Soro.
You cut out there, so I'm not certain if I'm supposed to speak now. But
yes.
Under the Agri-Recovery, it always was funded, from my understanding, for $125 million. Is there another $125 million put into the fund that was announced today, or is this just reallocating the same fund?
So there's always a capacity in a given year to spend. I mean, we have authority to spend up to $125 million. This year, we hadn't really spent any of that thus far. So this is that $125 million, and we're announcing effectively that we'll make all of that available if needed, starting with the beef and pork ranchers and farmers, and then if needed in other areas.
True, but my point is it's not really new funding then. The money's always been there. It's just not been fully allocated. It
wasn't being spent. I mean, whether it was
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, you know how it looks. Wow, we just gave 125 million, that's always been available. My other point about the beef and the pork slaughter side or the set aside, that's great that they're actually keeping the money there because they're needing more feed process or feed to buy. But the problem is the prices drop significantly. How is that still going to help the farmers with the costs of production when they're just helping with feed costs that they didn't need to have incurred in the first place because of the lack of slaughter kill?
Well, I think two comments. I mean, one would be, I think, by allowing the farmers more flexibility in terms of keeping animals longer, it certainly helps them avoid having to sell into to a difficult price situation, gives them flexibility as to when they sell. And the second point would be there are other programs out there to certainly help with revenue side issues, most notably agri-stability being the biggest at the federal, provincial, territorial level.
So my other comment then, because these are costs shared with the provinces, what happens if the province don't commit to their funding because of Alberta's actually in some financial difficult times? Does these programs still go through or not?
So that one of the things that we confirmed today was that if a province does not have their 40% share, we would, if they're willing to, if they want to go ahead with it, which we'd like them to do, we would still want to go ahead with just the federal contribution, which in previously we would have had to make sure the province was putting their 40 cents to the dollar on, and what we're saying now is if they are unavailable to do that, we will go ahead and put our amount in.
Okay, on the $77.5 million for emergency processing fund. Now, my understanding is there was this program being worked on since, companies like Regency was closed, its stores. Has this been in the works for some time? And if so, how long has it been trying to get funding for emergency slaughter kill?
The 77 million, I mean, how long was it in the decision-making process?
Yes.
I mean, it came out today. We've been working on these kind of programs, as I said before, as the crisis has developed. We've certainly looked at what we need to do to respond. I would just say, we also have existing under the agricultural partnership programming with the provinces. We do have existing programs for food processing capacity that existed previously, and certainly have been available in certain cases for a range of things like investments in slaughterhouses.
Okay. When it comes to also like the borrowing capacity seems to be the fallout for a lot of things where it doesn't really give money to the producer. It just either defers their payments or gets them deeper in debt. How can we develop a program instead of just getting them to borrow more money through farm credit?
Well, I think one of the options, where that's part of the surplus food program was one of those ideas, which was to get product that was otherwise not going to have a value or have a hard time returning a value to the farmer or the processor, to get that from where it was to where it will be used by those in need. So that's hopefully bringing value. I think working on food processing capacity is an important piece of ensuring value to primary agriculture in Canada. So I think all of these things together, certainly, deferral of debt payments is helpful in a financial in the kind of financial times we're in now. But I would agree that our programs are intending to support growth and incomes is certainly a priority and remains a priority.
Thank you, Mr. Forbes, and thank you, Mr. Soroka. Now to Mr. Cody Blois for 5 minutes, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased this evening to join my colleagues around the country to discuss some of the issues and opportunities for the agricultural sector in Canada. And as the other members have said, I would like to thank the House of Commons employees for the work they have invested in coming up with this virtual committee.
Of agriculture producers east of Montreal, including the most supply managed farms. So I'm very interested in today's announcement about the $200 million to the Canadian Dairy Commission. And perhaps Mr. Forbes, can you speak to what this program entails, what it means for the dairy industry, and the legislative process, if you could, just quickly?
Maybe Mr. Seppi, I'll let Mr. Seppi provide a few more details about the program as he's the expert in that area.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. This increase of the limit in the ability to borrow of the Canadian Dairy Commission from 300 million, actually, 500 million, would allow it to implement programs that it has put in place, agreed with the dairy marketing boards in the various provinces, so the producers, to use that money to purchase more on a temporary basis, more cheese. Because the surplus of milk that we have, as Mr. Drouin was saying earlier, the cow produce milk at this time of the year more than usual. So that capacity, the CDC will be able to purchase the cheese from the processors that will use the milk that is in surplus to produce this cheese, and then can put it in storage so that it can be sold back to the processors when the market is able to absorb that additional quantity of cheese. So it's a very useful mechanism, policy that allows to balance the supply and the demand of the system. So this is a stabilization mechanism that the dairy farmers and the dairy processors are really counting on in this difficult period.
Certainly great to hear. And just quickly, if you could, I mean, this is historic. I mean, this type of investment, we're in unprecedented times, but I got to assume in the history of the Canadian Dairy Commission, we haven't seen this type of initiative, assuming we can get the parliamentary approval.
Yes, that's correct. The situation right now, it's exceptional. It's in very rare circumstances that dairy farmers would be forced to dump milk. They always want to find a home for their milk. So that increased capacity of borrowing by the CDC will allow them to manage the system temporarily, and therefore it has to be, of course, it requires a legislative amendment, but the government has indicated that it would work closely with all parties to make sure that these changes can be implemented as quickly as possible.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to turn to labor because this has been a topic of interest in the Annapolis Valley, particularly. We have a large horticultural industry. I've certainly been working close with our Federation of Agriculture in Nova Scotia, but perhaps Mr. Forbes, can you speak to the effort that has gone in to make sure that our agriculture producers have the labor that they need? Probably in about 45 seconds, if you could.
Okay, I'll try to be quick. Temporary foreign workers, obviously I mentioned, has been a big effort to both make sure that they're brought in a way that respects public health and treats their own personal health, paramount, but also to get them to the farms where they can make a contribution. Provinces and ourselves are working on a variety of job matching sites to match unemployed Canadians with farm jobs, including in Nova Scotia, I know for sure, as the provincial minister is an advocate. And then the federal government did and is working with provinces on an offer to top up wages for workers in essential services, not in my area of responsibility, but I understand those discussions are ongoing.
Yeah, thank you so much. Just one final point. I had a conversation with Michael McCain, president of Canada, Maple Leafs Food, rather, and he talked about supply chain issues. Can you just quickly address where we're at with that and how today's announcement may have addressed some of those concerns?
Well, I think that the big issue comes a couple of places, but it has been in the manufacturing or transformation side that we've obviously seen some challenges. And as one of the previous questions went to, we may see a lot of manufacturers, food processors who need to take steps to adjust their processing systems to deal with a world where we're trying to mitigate COVID-19.
Thank you, Mr.
Certainly, yeah. Can I finish or?
Sure, go ahead quickly.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'll be quick. Certainly to say that I think the investments there will help them do that, and will therefore help keep supply chains functioning and get food into the grocery stores.
Thank you, Mr. Forbes, and thank you, Mr. Blois. And now for Ms. Rood for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, my question is going to be for Mr. Forbes. I put myself in farmer shoes today. I'm a farmer myself. I've been talking to many of my constituents, and the minister has been telling us that we're here for you. You know, hang tight, be patient. We're working with industry, and we're waiting for months and months only to find out that the funding that's available is not new funding, and we're facing bankruptcy. Some of my farmers are facing bankruptcy. So I just wanted to re-ask the question, the $125 million under Agri-Recovery, is it new money? Yes or no?
I'm going to say yes, because it was money that was not going to be spent until that announcement was made today.
But every year there is money made available under Agri-Recovery. So is this specifically new for COVID-19?
Last year, for example, we did not spend anywhere near $100 million through Agri-Recovery. These monies are new to deal with this specifics in the cattle and beef, the cattle and pork sectors right now, and as I said, could be made available to further industries if needed.
So the parliamentary budget officer has said there's been $126 billion, I believe, in new funds that's already been announced by the government. So if Agri-Recovery isn't new money, you can see how that kind of looks to industry and producers. I'm going to switch over and go back to the $77 million for the emergency processing fund. Mm-hmm. Can you confirm, was this in the works pre-COVID with industry? Were you in talks with industry pre-COVID-19, or is this new money? Again, yes or no, a new program?
This is a new program.
So it wasn't in the works prior to COVID?
Well, this program was not in the works prior to COVID. We have industry frequently asking us and making requests around new programming money, including the processing industry, but this program was not contemplated in its current form prior to COVID.
Okay, fair enough. And with regard to that $77 million, here in Ontario, we've had a backlog in cattle processing. We've got a lot of ranchers and cattle farmers in my riding who've had very big difficulties getting their cattle processed because of the riding Regency plant shut down back in December. And I have been asking the minister for months if there was something available to help. So just curious, now that we know riding Regency has, I believe, new ownership, is there a potential for that new owner to access some of this $77 million to retrofit in order to get them up and running again so that we can see increased capacity here for Ontario and in Eastern Canada?
So my answer would be yes. I mean, it's obviously subject to the specifics they would be looking for, but I'd just add, and sorry to be lengthy, that there are also other Agriculture Canada or provincial programs that can support processing investments that exist now too. So I think if that did proceed and that company, the new owners, if that's the case, were to come forward and engage with us, we'd certainly be happy to look at what was available in the existing suite of programs, including the $77 million.
Great, thank you. I've been talking with some of my small farmers as well, who are having kind of fallen through the cracks a little bit here. They're not qualifying for some of the money that's available to other businesses. And I'm just wondering, is there anything in the works to help the smaller farmers who maybe can't qualify because they don't have a payroll that's worth their $20,000, or they are self-employed and they use their own children and their spouses to be doing the work on their farms, and they also may have a retail store that they're not able to open right now. Is there anything available to them?
Well, I mean, there's a range of programs available, and I guess I would say that we try to, in our engagement with the sector, and whether it's individually or often through organizations, try to look at what is available to start off with, whether it's through farm credit or other lenders, other programs.
But with all due respect, farmers don't want to take on more debt. So will there be more help for them without having to take on more debt?
Yeah, sorry, just to be clear, like with the farm credit, a big chunk of that is deferrals. So it's not actually adding debt; it's deferring payments. But yeah, I know we've certainly heard that point that farmers are very clear about not wanting new debt. And certainly in our discussions, we're always, if we find out that programs are not working for farmers, I mean, if there are, we can often do things about them. If there are other parts of the government, we work with our colleagues to look at other solutions available to help make them better targeted for
right. But
farmers.
Deferring, I mean, they still have to pay the interest even if they defer, and that's only if they are existing customers of FCC.
So unfortunately, that's all the time we have.
Thank you very much.
And so now we'll move to Miss. Excusez, mettre en français là. OK, Madame Bessette.
Madame Bessette, for 5 minutes, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Forbes and Ms. Barnes, for joining and being there to answer our questions tonight. These complex times call for greater solidarity. In my writing, La Coopérative, Le Terroir Solidaire, is working closely with small farming companies in order to share best practices and mitigate impacts associated with COVID-19. And we know that regional and provincial agriculture's organization are the eyes and ears of what is really happening out there in the field. Can you inform this committee on how you're keeping in touch with stakeholders during this time, and what channel are you using to get this information out to them?
So I might turn that question to my colleague, Mr. Sepe, who is in fact, as I said, the ADM who's been really engaged most directly with stakeholders over this period.
Yes, thank you. So we have a number of mechanisms, some established by for a long period of time with the industry. Right now, as soon as we got in this crisis mode, we organized daily calls with the industry. At times, there's more than 500 representatives from all over the agriculture sector and agri-food, and including food banks and the small farmers, National Farmers Union, etc. So that's our primary vehicle. We have regular emails. We are sending proactively information to the distribution list of more than 1,500 participants, as well as the minister indicated previously, for certain big value chain that has specific issues. We are thinking of the meat sector. We have established working groups that meet regularly to discuss in details with decision makers in the government, among public servants, that can discuss the specific issues and look at how can we address specific bottleneck. For example, my colleague, Mrs. Barnes from CFI, has been active in these working groups when there was problems with the number of CFI inspectors that were available to work at certain plants. These issues were escalated and quickly fixed in collaboration with the industry. So these are just a few examples.
Thank you very much. Let me switch to my language. Okay, merci beaucoup.
Thank you for your answer. I'm somewhat troubled with these reports showing that thousands of animals have to be slaughtered for humanitarian reasons. The slaughterhouses are shut down. Several producers are faced with very difficult decisions. That's what is happening in my riding, but also across the country. I see that you have several links. What does the minister expect from stakeholders in relation to humanitarian slaughtering of animals? There were some sound issues with your question, but if I understood your question, what do you expect from stakeholders? Great. This is something that stakeholders are trying to avoid, if possible. That's why we are making efforts to support them with additional monies to allow them to keep the animals longer on the farm. That's the program we'll announce today through Agri-Recovery. Good, thank you. Well, I'm switching themes here. The changes in the market caused by COVID-19, they need change from one farm to the other. Obviously, we do need to be flexible in terms of independent workers, foreign workers. I'm talking about foreign workers, not independent workers. Do you have something in the works to facilitate the transfer between employers in relation to these foreign workers? Well, that's not really our area of expertise. In our department, we're trying to work with our colleagues in employment and social development and also the immigration department to come up with the most flexible solutions. For example, employees who are already here in Canada, and also facilitating some of the approval processes before entry to Canada, so as to bring about more flexibilities for employers. I know this is a major issue with producers, so we are coming up with some discussions amongst our colleagues at the federal level to make sure that things can be moved ahead as quickly as possible. So thank you. Thank you.
Just hang on here. If our witness will allow another 5 minutes, I think we'll get through the round. We're a little bit behind, but another 5 minutes, if it's okay with our witness to hang with us with another 5.
A pleasure.
Okay, so we'll go to just a second. Monsieur Perron pour 2 minutes et demie.
Mr. Perron for 2.5 minutes. Yes, thank you, the witness, for staying a little longer so we can have a second round of questioning. On the other hand, I'm quite disappointed. I'm learning from the skillful question of Mr. Sir and Ms. Rude that the money in agri-recovery, that these are not really new sums of money. And the details we provide Mr. Sipe on the Canadian dairy, that we're trying to boost the credit capacity to 500 million, whereas the proposal was for 800 million. I don't know. Can you tell me? It's difficult to inject new money in agriculture and supporting farmers. They're the basis of everything else. My question, are we thinking of paying compensation for supply management sectors? These are not new expenditures. These amounts of money were promised. The amounts have been established. We can make payments for 2020, 21 for dairy and other supply management sectors. They have applied. They have explained their specificities. They say they want investment programs and so on. I think it's a good moment to inject new money in farms. Ms. Rude mentioned it earlier. Farmers need financial assistance, but they don't want any increase in their debts that are already skyrocketing. So, Mr. Sipe, what can you say about compensation for people that are in supply management? I'll try. As the minister mentioned last week, I think it's still a priority for her. It was a promise made by the government. As she mentioned last week, I think this week she was minimally concerned with the issues directly tied to COVID-19. Those were her priorities. But I can say quickly that the credit limit for the Canadian Dairy Commission is 500 million, and we have, that's a sectoral demand. So we are just responding to what they asked. So if I understand you clearly, you're saying we expect an announcement on supply management and compensations or payments over the next week. No, that's not what I said. I'm just describing the minister's priorities. Well, priorities, the priority means you got to move fast on it, right? Thank you. No more sound?
Go ahead.
Great, thank you very much, Chair. I also have a number of small-scale farms in my riding, and many of them have developed a really neat business model over the years where they supply fresh local produce to a lot of the local restaurants in the area up and down Vancouver Island. And of course, because a lot of those restaurants are now closed, they've lost a huge share of their market. So I wanted to know two questions. For the $77.5 million that is being allocated in support of food processors for refitting, for buying new equipment, PPE, how are you ensuring that small-scale processors are still going to get an adequate share of that money? And the second question, has the department ever considered giving additional funding to programs like Canada Gap so that maybe small-scale fruit and vegetable growers can get the certification they need for safe handling of food to maybe start selling to major grocery outlets in local communities to try and, compensate for the loss in market share that they've had from the closure of all the restaurants?
So certainly, I'd say, Mr. McGregor, thanks for the questions. On the first part, when we develop a program, I mean, one of the things that we certainly will look at is how we make sure it's not all directed to large players, or that it's that certain groups are excluded. Like we will do our best to make sure it has as broad an application and works for the range of stakeholders in the sector, and that comes from a mix of dialogue, as Frederick was talking about, and also just our experience in delivering programs in terms of what works. In terms of your second question, I mean, I think these are the kinds of suggestions that certainly we can always look at, whether it's with the provincial programming or federal programming under the agricultural partnership. We have programs that can look at providing support to organizations to develop standards or to support companies looking to achieve standards, and that's certainly the type of suggestion we can always look at with stakeholders, as I say, either provincially because they have agricultural partnership funding, or federally.
Thank you.
Thank you all. So this puts an end to our question period. We shall break at this time for 5 minutes. So you want a little break to stretch your legs or whatever, and we'll come back in 5 minutes. So 6:30, or 6:30 my time. Alistair is what, 3:30 in your neck of the woods. So anyway, at the half hour, if we could all come back. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
everybody back? I'm not seeing all the pictures, so Mr. Els, okay, Caroline, Monsieur Perron, est-ce que vous êtes là? Mr. Barlow, Monsieur Perron. Alors, je pense qu'on est tous ici.
I think we're all back.
Live, we're in public. Now, I'm not insinuating that you don't behave responsibly when we're not, but I just want to say that we are still in public because we cannot go in camera with this app. So what we want to do now is just plan for the next couple of meetings. You've all, I believe you've all submitted, we try to get at least a bunch of names to witnesses for organizations. And I believe you've all submitted them. And if I can get a clarification from the clerk, I think it was all sent, the whole list of witnesses that was submitted by every party was sent to each and every one of you. So we need to, a couple of things we need to decide. As far as the panel itself, usually we'll have 2 full hours. So is it the wish of the committee to separate that in 2 hours, 2 panels, 2 different panels? And in my mind, I think 3 maximum per panel would be about as much as we can do with all the little breaks that we get along the way for technical issues. So that, and I'll just finish by saying that we also, so we have been told that we can meet at least once a week. If we meet twice a week on Fridays and Tuesday. So we've had a deadline also that we wanted to put as far as submitting new witnesses. So that deadline would be May 7th, which is next Thursday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Now, having said that, we may need to, get a new round of witnesses. We don't know how long this study will last. So, but with this, if you can submit all the witness you can until before Thursday, that would be great, and it would help the analysts to prepare the list. As far as we'll use the same formula, if it's okay, as we did in our first study, where we go with the percentage of the House. So 50% Liberal Party, 30% Conservative Party, 10% Bloc, and 10% NDP, give or take a few. So that gives an idea for the clerks to prepare the list of witnesses. I guess that's about all I have to say. So I can take some comments or suggestions or questions from the floor. Monsieur Drouin.
Go ahead, Mr. Perron, then Mr. Barlow. Is it up to me? Okay. based on what Mr. Drouin said, it was quite obvious when you asked us to submit lists. We had to come up with a priority order. The MPs that drew up this list of witnesses, there were people that have testified elsewhere, and they think that they can bring in significant information. I don't think the fact that people have been witnesses elsewhere should really matter. I think it should just be the list that the members come up with. Yes, Mr. Perron, I think it's up to the parties to decide who they would like to have as a witness. I think I started with Mr. Drouin. Well, that's your choice to come up with the list of witnesses you like.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I'm kind of echoing Monsieur Perron. We've already submitted our witness list, so it's tough to prioritize ones that have been. And I think to Francis's comment, I think it's pretty tough for us not to have CFA, Hort, Cattlemen, Pork Council, Meat Council on Ag Committee. They may be bringing up issues that are more focused on agriculture programs or issues than if they were at finance or industry, they may have taken a bit of a different approach. And many of us on the Ag Committee were not on those committees, and we have not had the opportunity to ask questions that we may feel are more ag specific or more of an ag direction. So I agree to a little point. There may be some that don't have a specific ag focus that maybe we don't have to prioritize, but I think our main stakeholder groups, it would be incorrect for us not to have them as big priorities as part of this committee. My second point would be, Mr. Chair, I'm wondering if there's any will amongst our members to put some sort of timeline on this. And the only reason I say this is maybe unlike a lot of other industries, time is of the essence when it comes to agriculture. As we're going through the spring seeding right now, yearlings are producers are trying to get them into the auction marts. Many of the programs, the set aside does not work for the hog industry as wasn't really raised today, as Mr. Forbes had said. We want the set aside for the pork industry. It doesn't work for pork. So I think there are some time issues that we need to be focused on. So I'm not clear, Mr. Chair, maybe you can clarify this on how this is going to work. Are we meeting indefinitely and just talking about COVID issues in agriculture, which obviously is what we're here for? Or are we saying, maybe in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we develop some sort of a list of recommendations that we would pass on to the minister? Because I do think time is working against the agriculture industry right now in terms of some of the things they are facing. So maybe, Mr. Chair, you can provide some direction there on the timelines here or what's really expected of us, if that's okay.
Thank you, Mr. Barlow. And to your first point, again, it is up to the party to present whoever they want to see as witnesses. On your second point, from my understanding, is that we are here at the will of the House. The whips of each party agreed, and right now we don't have a mandate to say do 6 studies and then you cut it. So it can be done if we can all go back to our whips and agree as parties that, okay, we want you guys to come up with a report after 6th meeting or so, or whatever it is. That's how I understand it. I can certainly double check it, but that's how I understand. And Mr. Clerk, Monsieur Marc Olivier, est-ce que c'est à peu près ça ou est-ce que...
Oui, Monsieur le Président, vous avez raison. Pour l'instant, le comité...
Yes, you're right, Mr. Chair. For now, can you hear me? The committee has received a reference order from the House to sit only to hear testimony on the current pandemic. So this doesn't prevent the committee from gathering up all this evidence, and when the chamber starts sitting in a more traditional manner with all the committees, I don't think anything should prevent the committee from taking into account testimony they gathered virtually during this period in order to make recommendations to the government and the House. Thank you. Mr. Chair, on that, I just want to make sure
to pursue on that. Again, we have been mandated by the House to do this study, and right now we don't have the mandate, or we can't vote anything else because of the structure or the mechanism that we have now. So again, unless we get different directions from the House, right now we'll just keep doing our study, and we can decide, within that framework how it's going to go. We could very well say we're going to do it by theme. We're going to do meats, we're going to do grains, we're going to do that. Could be another option. Look at all sectors. So basically, that's the direction that we've been given, and I can double check it, but that's how I understand. I think Mr. Blois, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Certainly appreciate it. Just a couple housekeeping notes more than anything. Timing, I think you mentioned Tuesdays and Fridays. I think the schedule's being determined by the whip's office, but do you know when we would regularly meet per week? And that would be my first question. The second piece is around themes. I think you're spot on. We need to have some direction if we want to maybe look and analyze the measures that we've announced as a government today, and take a look at their benefits and what it means to the industry. To the point on the other different committees, I did listen in on Indu last night, and it sounded a lot what I would assume what this committee would sound like. It was very agricultural focused. If the committee, and if it's the will of this committee to continue to bring those same witnesses, so be it. But to Mr. Drouin's point, I do think that there's an opportunity here from some different folks that perhaps all parties have not had the chance to bring forward through this committee. So, there's a lot of duplication going on right now, and I think we have to ask ourselves as a committee, what is our role? And especially recognizing that I believe it's only May 25th that we're scheduled or permitted to meet at this point. So I guess it would be times, themes, and perhaps can we confirm that we only really have a mandate till the May 25th?
Thank you, Mr. Blois. I do believe that's the date. Right now, I don't have that in front of me. Monsieur, est-ce que le greffier, est-ce que vous pouvez?
The clerk, can you clarify? Do we have a solid date for May 25th? It's a good question, Mr. Chair. I believe that the 25th May date, that maybe I can verify while you're carrying on your discussions and get back to you.
Anybody else had their hands up that I didn't spot? Monsieur Perron voulait revenir. Okay.
Mr. Perron, you want to come back?
Okay. Yes, my question is, I know that the Minister of Agriculture has appeared before other committees. However, with today's announcement, we have significant new material to discuss, and with respect to Mr. Forbes, he did a good job answering his questions, but he can't really go beyond the technical nature of the announcement. He's tasked with carrying it out. So I'm wondering, Chair, has an invitation been sent to the Minister, and do we have any kind of an indication as to when she might be available to come and appear before our committee?
I'm quite sure she has been invited. As to the time that she comes in, I'm not sure. And I'm not sure if I didn't see the list of the 5 witnesses that everybody provided, whether she was on that list. But anyway, I'm sure that she will be asked, and she has been asked already, and we'll make sure to have time for her if it's the will of the committee. Okay. Mr. Perron?
Mr. Perron? Well, it's the issue raised by Mr. Barlow earlier. He seemed to agree with me on the first part. I agree with him on the second part, to the effect that even if it's not clearly stipulated in the mandate we're given, what I understood, I'm a new MP. I'd like to remind you what I understood was that the committee, the sovereign, can carry out actions how it wishes, and the decision-making processes. We could decide to come up with recommendations and send them out, and I could make a proposal to that effect. I would raise a point of order. That cannot be done, Mr. Chair. We cannot do that. I can't hear Mr. Drouin, unfortunately. Could you switch to French if you're speaking French? I just want to point out, I understand Mr. Perron's statements, but it's impossible to do so. We're at the mercy of the House, and we have no elbow room on this. There are other committees sitting now. The House is not officially sitting. May I remind you, it's a special status, if you like. So if Mr. Perron wants to consult the 11th April motion and amendments that were made to that motion a few days ago, the Agriculture Commission, you can take a look at that. But we cannot come up with a motion just because we're interested. We're not really sovereign. We are truly, verily at the mercy of the chamber, of the House. Yes, Mr. Drunk, that's how I understood this. And based on the motion, we have to follow the directives. It's somewhat different from the periods when we're sitting outside of these virtual contexts. Well, that's why I did explain. I did point out that I was a new MP. Well, this whole process is new for everybody. So,
also have, if we want the minister to come in, we would have to send an invitation to the minister to officially bring her in. So is it the will of the committee to send an invite to the minister to appear? Just, yeah, let's just do the bobblehead, I guess. We're all good on that? Okay. So we will send the minister an invitation, and as soon as we know when, we'll certainly circulate it to all the members. So just to be clear, the first 5, because we wanted to have a list for the clerks to invite people, that's why we said, okay, send us your top 5 right now. And then Thursday, we want everybody to dig deeper and send another list that you can send as many as you want. But we'd like to have another more comprehensive list for Thursday, just to make sure that everybody's got that. Is there any other questions or comments? So that's all I have. And oh, Mr. Barlow, go ahead.
Well, I just saw Ms. Reed with her hand up.
Can't hear you very well, Mr.
Sorry,
Barlow.
Mr. Chair, I had my hand up, and I think Mr. Lahou has his hand raised up there too.
Oh, okay, I never saw it. Okay. Okay, who wants to go first? Okay, go ahead, Leanne, and we'll get John, and then Mr. Lahou.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say to Mr. Boyce's point, I did sit on the industry committee last night for the meeting with our stakeholders, but I think it's important that we see them in the agriculture committee, especially in the context of we've just heard this announcement of new money and new funding for the agriculture industry, and I think it's important that we hear from the stakeholders now how this is going to or not going to help them, and it's important that we see them at this committee to study that in particular. And that's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It is certainly the option of every party to submit their choice of witnesses for sure. Okay, let's go to Mr. Barlow.
No, Mr. Chair, I just noticed Leanne and Richard had their hands raised, so I was just bringing your attention to that.
Oh, okay. So, Monsieur Lahou.
Mr. Lahou. Mr. Lahou, you have a question? No? Is it my turn? Okay. I won't take too much of your time. I think Ms. Rood clearly expressed my thoughts on this. I think it's important that we hear some witnesses again. And I think we should be able to come up with a few recommendations. I am also a new MP. I think it's important to be able to make these recommendations, not just listening to people for the sake of listening. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lahou. You do have the option of inviting the witnesses you like. As far as the recommendations, as we explained, this is somewhat beyond our control. Maybe things will change, but that's in keeping with our mandate. Other questions?
Are there others? So I don't see any hand raised. Hopefully I didn't miss anyone.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Boyce.
I believe we have the ability to strike a subcommittee, one representative from each of the parties along, I believe, with yourself and perhaps the clerk of the committee. So as it relates to themes and some of the witnesses and other ancillary issues that have been raised, I would recommend that just gets handled offline outside of this forum to help expedite our process.
Nous n'avons plus de son. Je ne sais pas si je suis.
We don't have any more sound. So my sound is cut off. I don't know if I'm the only one.
On n'entend pas, Monsieur le Président.
I can hear you, Mr. Chair. So
To move any motion. So we didn't have a subcommittee structured from the start. So we're not allowed to have any motion or anything else. But right now, the only thing we have to deal with is witnesses, scheduling, and that. So that's all we have. That's not to say that you can call me and I can call you and we can all talk about things, but we cannot adopt or do anything as a subcommittee officially. So again, but my line is open if you want to talk about different things. But again, we're very tightly limited as to what we're allowed to do, and it's basically to talk about COVID-19 issues as it deals with agriculture, and that's pretty much it. Monsieur Perron.
Mr. Perron. Well, maybe we could do what's happening usually in the House, trying to resolve that without coming here instead of wasting time in negotiation and the winnage. Instead of wasting time listening to witnesses, maybe agree beforehand that we should get here and do it formally. Do we have the right to do that? We can discuss amongst ourselves, but the witnesses, yes, we can talk, no problem. But everything will go to the clerk. Everything is official to come up with a list and the schedules. The only thing we have control of is the list of witnesses, the different panelists we will have. And we can decide when they appear before us. That's about everything we can control. But as I said, you can call me if you have issues to raise. Outside, I'm always available. You can send me an email. Mr. Chair, if you would allow. We don't have any objections to informal meetings to discuss potential witnesses, so we don't waste 2 hours. March 25th May 25th rather is fast approaching, so we cannot have committee meetings, but we can have informal meetings with all the MPs that are part of the committee to discuss what witnesses we should line up so that we can instruct our clerk and our analyst. Obviously, if the other parties are in agreement. Yes, and everybody would receive the witnesses list that was proposed. In some cases, it'll be the same. Maybe the Conservatives list will be the same as ours, and so on. You will take a look at the list. I don't have any issue. If you want to do some pre-conference work, some Zoom work, have a chat just to negotiate what witnesses you would like to hear first or second, and so on. I don't have an issue with that. I think that is within the confines of what we can do. Just to specify something, if it's informal, will we have interpretation services? We may be able to work something out, but that may be hard to do. Mr. Marc Olivier, if we had these informal meetings, is it possible to have interpretation services? Yes, I believe it's possible that interpretation will not be simultaneous. It will be rather consecutive. So it won't be right as you're speaking, as we're doing now, but consecutively after you finish speaking. Thank you. We could try that. Maybe in the weekend we could do some sort of conference call and have someone come in to do the translation and discuss issues outside of the committee to save time. I can ask my assistant to organize that. All parties in agreement?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. Well, I can try and set up. What's the best time? Is it morning, evening, or afternoon? So if we could have, I'll have Mr. McGregor, of course. You represent your party, Mr. Perron aussi. So I don't know who wants to who would be the conservative lead. Can you? Anybody wants to volunteer to represent the Conservative Party?
Yeah, I will, Mr. Chair, and I don't know that days of the week matter anymore or time of the day. So whatever works, we'll make it work.
Okay, we'll try and not wake you up too early in the morning, John and Alistair. Okay, and okay, so we've got all four parties, and I'll try and set it before our next meeting, because again, we have to submit our final list on Thursday at 10:30. So I'll try and do it beforehand. So if we can negotiate some witnesses, that work? Any other hands? Oh, we see.
Mr. Chair, who's that? If I can intervene on two things. First of all, come back to the committee quickly. I've confirmed the date of May 25th. You know that the four party whips of the recognized parties, unless they agree to move this date forward or postpone it. I just want to clarify something. Who would you like to see for this Friday meeting? Is it understood that you would like to see the minister, or maybe identify some organizations that you would like us to invite on your behalf for Friday's meeting? If you can provide us some specifics, that would help. Good. If the clerk wants to send an invitation to the minister, if not, we can go by the priority order proposed by each party. 2 panels of 3, if you agree. Because you have to give a notice to the people that are being invited. If you agree, we'll follow the priority order. You said maybe the minister first. If she can come, if she cannot, she can say when we can invite her. So if you're all in agreement, that's how we'll proceed. Everybody in agreement? Good. Anything else?
First meeting. Thank you so much. I think it was it went relatively well. I'm really happy to see everyone, and looking forward to our next one. And take care, everyone. Take care of yourselves and your family, and you know that's the important thing. Okay. Bonsoir tout le monde.
Good night, everyone.